Alright, so hopefully an interesting one today. I'm about to pick up a car and head out of Tokyo for a few days down towards Mount Fuji. So I want to talk about all things finding unique locations and even how to take interesting shots at locations you've seen before. All things about location scouting. I'm gonna get my car, so I better get moving and let's jump in. So one thing about photography in the social media era is it's actually quite hard to find new and unique places that you haven't seen before. Places where we have no preconceived ideas of what we're going to capture. It does make it super easy as a photographer to find locations, which is a big plus. But how much planning should you do? If you can imagine in the past, before we had all this technology for planning and seeing locations, imagine just rocking up to one of these locations and that you'd never even seen before, how magical that experience would be. So I personally find it hard sometimes to strike that balance, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. This was the first location and it was one I saw on Instagram as an early cherry blossom spot, but I was a bit late and it was really only okay. So next up I was headed to get a nice view of Mount Fuji with the Shinkansen or the bullet train in the frame. Now I can't say I've really seen this shot on Instagram, but I have seen it a lot on Japan tourism brochures and that kind of thing. So what was a bit of a fail this morning, two locations that cherry blossoms were kind of gone or not in bloom. It's been a pretty successful spot here with Fuji and the Shinkansen rushing past here. I think I've got a couple of different shots and a location I haven't really seen photos, so it's nice to get a location like this, get some, I wouldn't say they're super unique photos. I've seen some of the Shinkansen, but I haven't seen anywhere I'm got this kind of picture in my mind and I'm trying to copy it. It is nice kind of going to a location not really knowing what to expect. I'm gonna rush to the next one, hopefully get a few more shots before the sun dips. So let's get moving. What a beauty she is. All right, so this morning I'm literally just walking around looking for frames with Fuji in it. This town is actually called Fuji and it's quite industrial, but hoping for a few unique frames. Busy road, so I'm gonna get shooting. Let's get to it. So this morning I did get a few frames that I liked, and I actually went past this super famous Instagram spot on the way as well, both this staircase and also this road above, and I did still fire off a few frames. But the more I visit these kind of Insta famous spots, they are sometimes quite beautiful, but I'm having less motivation to photograph them these days. I also find at these type of locations, you often have this dream shot in your mind that you've seen elsewhere, and if you don't come away with something similar, you often come away kind of disappointed. So I decided to move on pretty quickly and wandered a bit further down the road and got this view a little bit further down on an overpass, which I actually do like. Again, Fuji and its scale does the heavy lifting in this photo. It is quite busy otherwise, but I did also find a few quieter areas, and I quite like this frame just with the trucks here. And these are the type of shots I actually like finding. So for me, at these really popular locations, I still like to go there, maybe try and find a slightly different composition, try a different angle, try and come up with something unique if possible. Some other photos I took this morning with this car, the light just hitting part of the scene I really like, and of course Fuji makes this photo again. I also managed to find a few quiet, simple frames like these, which I always enjoy shooting. So as I've experienced here, those days where you kind of just go off exploring and find your own compositions rather than trying to match or find something you've seen on social media, to me they are really the most rewarding and much more satisfying to find these type of frames. So that's personally what I enjoy shooting, and this has probably changed a bit more over time. I guess this is why I've always been drawn to street photography, because in most cases you turn up with little to no expectations of what you're going to get. and this is why it can be really rewarding when you find nice and interesting compositions. The next day, to finish this one off, I headed down by the lake at Kawaguchiko, and unfortunately it was quite windy, so I was hoping for a nice still reflection on the lake, but it wasn't quite there. So I tried to come up with what I could, mostly liking these clean, more simple frames, but I also did try and incorporate these boats into a few frames somehow, perhaps with pretty mixed results. I did wander around a little bit more just around the town here. Nothing super exciting, but some I don't mind. So from making this video, I've come to the realization that definitely some degree of planning, I always do some planning, is worthwhile, but only to some extent. And that's why I still like Google Maps and using Street View and those type of things for looking at locations, because it doesn't tend to give me too many preconceived ideas of the type of compositions I might find. I think this is where social media kind of takes away from our photography experience a little bit, although it does, as I said, make it really useful and helpful for planning. So for me, it's definitely a balance of weighing these two things up. So I hope you have enjoyed this one and found it useful. I'm headed back to Tokyo now, hopefully to chase some cherry blossoms, but they are meant to peak just after I leave. So fingers crossed I can get some of them. Keep on creating and keep on growing, my friends. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.